What if the classic songs you know and love hide macabre secrets based on real-life events? What you're about to hear might just change the way you listen to some of these tracks forever. Get ready to discover 10 dark secrets behind iconic 70s songs that could easily be a Netflix series. These are stories of shipwrecks, protests, murders, and tragedies, all hidden in plain sight. And the first one, well, it's a haunting tale you won't soon forget. Let's dive into the story behind one of the most chilling songs ever written, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up if you're ready for some dark music history. And don't forget to click the bell so you never miss a new video. Now, let's get started. The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, Gordon Lightfoot, 1976. Gordon Lightfoot's The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald isn't just a song, it's a memorial to a real-life disaster. When you hear it, you're immediately transported to the icy waters of Lake Superior, as if you're stranded in a brutal storm. The simple yet powerful lyrics describe the final moments of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, one of the largest cargo ships to ever sail the Great Lakes. On November 10, 1975, while on its regular route, the ship encountered a ferocious storm with 70 miles per hour winds and 35-foot waves. The radio contact was lost that night, and by morning, only the wreckage was floating on the surface. Tragically, all 29 crew members perished in the disaster. Gordon Lightfoot came across a news article about the disaster and was so moved that, in just a few weeks, he wrote the song that would become one of folk music's most iconic tracks. He was meticulous in his research, with the lyrics almost directly transcribing the events, including the last radio transmission from the captain and even the cook's final words, "It's been good to know you." There's no fiction here, just pure truth. Lightfoot captured the tragedy with the precision of a documentary, and the song, with its somber tone, carries the weight of a true tribute. But what makes this story even more touching is the respect with which Lightfoot treated the memory of the 29 men. When the Coast Guard later corrected one of the presumed causes of the shipwreck, Lightfoot modified the lyrics during live performances to reflect the updated findings, all without sensationalism, just pure respect. To this day, people in the Great Lakes region hold memorials every year for the lost crew, and the song continues to play like a hymn, with the Fitzgerald bell rung 29 times on November 10, one for each soul lost on that tragic day. This song is more than just a tune, it's a piece of history, a reminder of how fragile and fleeting life can be. It's not just the sound of waves crashing or the melancholy guitar of Lightfoot that touches us, it's the truth behind the song. And when we listen, we're not just hearing music, we're feeling the grief and despair of a real disaster that took place. Ohio, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Amp, Young, 1970. Neil Young's Ohio isn't just a song, it's a call to action, a furious response to the violent tragedy at Kent State University. On May 4, 1970, the Ohio National Guard opened fire on unarmed students protesting the U.S. invasion of Cambodia during the Vietnam War. 4 students were killed that day, and 2 others, who weren't even part of the protest, were wounded. The image of one student, Marion Vecchio, screaming over the body of Jeffrey Miller, was plastered on every front page in the country, and it shook Neil Young to his core. While flipping through Life magazine just days later, Young saw the photo, and it was like a punch to the gut. He grabbed his guitar and immediately wrote Ohio, which was recorded and released in less than 3 weeks. That's almost unheard of in the music world, a song born out of pure raw emotion and a need to speak the truth. What makes this song so powerful is its brutal honesty. There's no room for metaphor here. Young's lyrics don't ask questions, they point fingers, name names, and call out the government for what it did. The song is a direct accusation, 10 soldiers and Nixon coming, we're finally on our own. And in 1970, that was bold. In fact, many radio stations banned the song, but as we all know, prohibit something, and suddenly, everyone wants to hear it even more. The song became a rallying cry for those who were protesting the war, but it didn't stop there. It still holds relevance today, as it continues to find its way onto protest playlists every time a new generation asks, where do we draw the line between freedom and fear? For those who lived through the 70s, Ohio wasn't just a protest song, it was a line in the sand. And Neil Young didn't just give sorrow a voice, he gave it a guitar and turned the volume all the way up. Even today, when you hear Ohio, you can still feel the anger, the urgency, and the tragedy of that moment. I Shot the Sheriff, Bob Marley, 1973, / Eric Clapton, 1974. When you hear Bob Marley's I Shot the Sheriff, it may sound like a laid-back reggae anthem, but underneath the groove is a story of defiance, rebellion, and a subtle critique of the system. Marley wasn't just singing about shooting a sheriff, he was speaking to the larger issue of oppression, surveillance, and the power dynamics that plagued Jamaica at the time. The sheriff in the song wasn't just one man, he represented the system that had Marley constantly under watch, a system that made him feel hunted. Marley later admitted that the song wasn't meant to be taken literally. The sheriff wasn't a person, but rather the law enforcement system that was constantly on his tail. He felt the pressure of being watched, scrutinized, and even targeted by those in power. In his mind, the sheriff symbolized that oppressive force, and the act of shooting him was a metaphor for pushing back against that control. When Eric Clapton covered the song in 1974, he gave it a smooth, bluesy twist, and suddenly the world was hearing this rebellious anthem in a completely different light. Clapton's version softened some of the sharper edges of Marley's original, but the song's message, still loud and clear, found its way into mainstream radio, becoming a global hit. What makes I Shot the Sheriff so powerful is how Marley used his platform to send a message of resistance without directly confronting the authorities. Instead, he crafted a metaphor that could fly under the radar, allowing him to speak his truth while keeping himself safe for a while. When Clapton took it to a wider audience, the song gained a new layer of significance, showing how music can bridge cultural divides and bring revolutionary ideas to the mainstream. But what's most remarkable about this track is how Marley was able to make a message of rebellion sound so inviting. The catchy melody and infectious rhythm had people singing along without realizing they were chanting about defiance and revolution. It's a perfect example of how the right song can carry a message through waves of mainstream popularity, even when the content is anything but mainstream. Smoke on the Water, Deep Purple, 1972. If you've ever picked up a guitar, you've probably tried to play the iconic riff from Deep Purple's Smoke on the Water. It's a riff that has become synonymous with rock music itself, but what most people don't know is that the song is actually a real-life account of one of the most insane nights in music history. The story behind the song isn't just rock and roll folklore, it's a wild tale of fire, chaos, and a near disaster that changed Deep Purple's recording plans forever. The band was in Montreux, Switzerland, gearing up to record their next album at a casino. They had a mobile recording studio owned by none other than the Rolling Stones. Everything was set up for a smooth recording session, but then, disaster struck. During a Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention concert at the casino, someone in the crowd fired a flare gun at the ceiling. The building caught fire almost instantly, and the entire casino went up in flames. Deep Purple watched in horror from across Lake Geneva as the smoke spread across the water, turning the sky black with ash. This dramatic scene was burned into their minds, and they immediately began writing the song. The lyrics, "Smoke on the water, fire in the sky," were a literal description of what they saw that night. The casino fire destroyed their plans for recording at the casino, but it also gave them the raw material for one of the greatest rock songs ever written. The band was forced to find a new location to record the album, eventually settling in an old hotel. But even though the fire had thrown their plans into chaos, it gave the song an authentic edge. The frantic, almost frantic energy of the night was captured perfectly in the music. And it was more than just a great riff, it was a story of resilience, and the kind of rock and roll madness that only the greatest bands can create. What makes Smoke on the Water so legendary is that it isn't just about a fire in a casino, it's a piece of rock history forged in real-life chaos. From a bad decision to a world-changing song, this track turned a near disaster into a classic anthem, and today, that riff is as iconic as the event that inspired it. American Pie, Don McLean, 1971. Don McLean's American Pie is more than just a song, it's a lyrical puzzle that fans have been trying to solve since its release in 1971. With its cryptic references and enigmatic lines, American Pie is like a time capsule that captures the loss of innocence and the cultural upheaval of the 1960s. The song's iconic line, "The Day the Music Died," refers to a tragic event that forever altered the course of rock and roll. On February 3, 1959, a small plane crashed in a cornfield in Iowa, killing three of the biggest stars of early rock and roll, Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson. McLean was just a teenager at the time, delivering newspapers when he first heard the news. He later described the feeling as a punch to the stomach, as if something sacred had been lost. That moment stayed with him for more than a decade. When McLean finally turned that sorrow into song, American Pie became an 8-minute epic that covered not just the crash itself, but the entire era that followed. The song reflects on the turbulent years of the 1960s, everything from the assassination of JFK to the Vietnam War, the Manson murders, and the Altamont Free Concert. All these chaotic events are woven into the lyrics, hidden behind metaphors about the jester and the king, leaving fans to decode the story behind the lines. But at its heart, American Pie is about more than just that fateful plane crash. It's about the end of an era, a time when rock and roll was young, fresh, and filled with hope. And when those stars fell from the sky, it felt like everything changed. McLean's melancholy melody, combined with the haunting chorus, made American Pie a nostalgic anthem for a generation that had watched their heroes fall. The song is still as relevant today as it was when it first came out. It's a reflection of cultural change and a reminder that, sometimes, the music we love carries with it the weight of history. American Pie may have been about the loss of one musical generation, but it also served as a reflection of how much of that innocence was lost in the years that followed. Hurricane, Bob Dylan, 1975. Bob Dylan's Hurricane is more than just a song, it's an anthem for justice, a furious cry against an injustice that could have destroyed a man's life. The song tells the true story of Reuben Hurricane Carter, a middleweight boxer whose promising career was cut short when he was wrongfully convicted of a triple murder in New Jersey in 1966. The case was riddled with unreliable eyewitnesses, lost evidence, and racial bias, yet Carter was sentenced to life in prison. Dylan became aware of Carter's case after reading his autobiography, The 16th Round, and was horrified by what he saw. The more he learned, the more outraged he became. Dylan met with Carter behind bars, and the injustice of the situation hit him like a freight train. He was so moved that he immediately began writing Hurricane, a song that would directly call out the flaws in the judicial system, exposing the corruption, the lies, and the racism that led to Carter's conviction. What makes Hurricane so powerful is how Dylan uses the power of music to shine a spotlight on an issue that was otherwise being ignored by the mainstream. The song is relentless, with Dylan's voice growing more impassioned with each verse as he names names and points fingers. The lyrics don't leave any room for doubt. Carter was innocent, and the system had failed him. The song was released in 1975, and its impact was immediate. Not only did it bring Carter's case to national attention, but it also became a rallying cry for those who believed in justice. Dylan's music, once again, became a tool for social change, pushing people to reconsider the fairness of their legal system and the prejudices that lay within. Carter's case wasn't solved overnight, but Hurricane sparked a movement that eventually led to his conviction being overturned in 1985, nearly 2 decades after his initial arrest. The song lives on, not just as a historical record, but as a reminder of the power of music to change the world. And as long as it's played, we'll remember the story of Reuben Hurricane Carter, and how one man's fight for justice became the fight for many others. Tangled Up in Blue, Bob Dylan, 1975. Bob Dylan's Tangled Up in Blue is one of his most introspective and personal songs. Unlike many of his politically charged tracks, this one is a deeply emotional exploration of love, regret, and the complexity of relationships. It's a song that tells a story of love lost, but its narrative is fractured and elusive, much like the relationships it describes. At the heart of Tangled Up in Blue is Dylan's tumultuous relationship with his first wife, Sarah Lones. In the early 1970s, their marriage was falling apart. They had been together since the mid-60s, through Dylan's meteoric rise to fame, his motorcycle accident, and his temporary withdrawal from the public eye. By the time Dylan was working on his 1974 album Blood on the Tracks, their marriage was quietly unraveling, and these feelings of heartbreak and confusion poured out into his music. The song's lyrics are fragmented and nonlinear, jumping from past to present, from one perspective to another. This structure mirrors the emotional disarray that Dylan was feeling. The song doesn't follow a clear narrative, instead, it's like a dream, with moments of clarity interspersed with confusion. At times, the narrator seems to be looking back with regret, at other times he's searching for answers, but the timeline is blurry, just as life often feels when we reflect on love lost. While Dylan never explicitly named his wife in the song, the themes, timing, and even some of the private notes Dylan later revealed in his notebooks all point to Sarah as the inspiration. Dylan himself admitted that Tangled Up in Blue reflects real emotional experiences, though not necessarily exact events. It's a snapshot of how love and loss can leave a person feeling tangled up in their own emotions, trying to find their way back to clarity. What makes this song so powerful is that it speaks to something universal. Everyone has experienced heartbreak, confusion, and the search for meaning in a relationship gone wrong. Dylan captured that feeling perfectly, but without offering easy answers. The song's open-ended nature invites listeners to interpret it through their own lenses, making it a deeply personal experience for anyone who hears it. Even today, Tangled Up in Blue continues to resonate with fans and artists alike. It's a reminder that life, like love, is complicated. And while we may never have all the answers, we continue to navigate the tangled emotions that define who we are. The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia, Vicki Lawrence, 1972. Vicki Lawrence's The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia is one of those songs that feels like a Southern Gothic novel wrapped in a haunting melody. On the surface, it seems like a simple tale of betrayal and murder, but as the story unfolds, we realize it's more than just a tragic country ballad, it's a twisted narrative full of shocking turns and a chilling climax. The song tells the story of a man who returns home to find his wife cheating on him. In a fit of rage, he kills her lover and is then wrongfully convicted of the crime. But the twist comes when we learn that the real murderer was none other than his sister, who framed him for the killing and let him take the fall. The final lines, "I don't know why I didn't know it / I guess I just couldn't see it," leave us with a chilling sense of injustice, as the man's fate is sealed by someone he trusted. The inspiration for the song came from Bobby Russell, a pop songwriter who had penned hits like Little Green Apples. However, this was a much darker tale. Russell was inspired by stories his brother used to tell him about the small-town justice that could be found in the Deep South, where rumors, family connections, and personal vendettas often overrode the law. The idea of a corrupt system working against an innocent man was at the core of the story. Lawrence, who was also the star of The Carol Burnett Show, was encouraged by her husband to record the song, even though it was darker and more dramatic than anything she had done before. And thank goodness she did. Her delivery, calm, almost sweet in its initial verses, but then rising to a gut punch of a finale, became the perfect vehicle for this eerie story. With the chilling twist and the haunting final lines, Lawrence's performance is what makes the song unforgettable. The song was a huge hit, reaching #1 on the charts in 1973, and it's remained a classic ever since. While it's often considered a Southern murder ballad, it's also a commentary on how easily people can be manipulated, and how the truth can be twisted by those closest to you. It's a dark tale of justice gone wrong, and every time the lights go out in Georgia, we're reminded that sometimes, the truth is buried deeper than we ever imagined. Cats in the Cradle, Harry Chapin, 1974. Harry Chapin's Cats in the Cradle may sound like a soft, sweet folk song, but underneath the gentle melody lies a poignant and painful reminder of how time slips away and how we often fail to realize the most important moments until it's too late. The song tells the story of a father who was too busy for his son, and a son who, in turn, grows up to be too busy for his father. It's a cycle of neglect and regret that resonates deeply with anyone who has ever struggled to balance their personal and professional lives. The story unfolds in the form of a dialogue between the father and son. The father promises to spend time with his son, but he is always too busy working, traveling, living his life. Meanwhile, the son watches, learning from his father's actions more than from his words. As the years pass, the son grows up and begins to repeat the same patterns, becoming too busy to spend time with his aging father. The song's haunting final lines, "When you coming home, Dad? I don't know when / but we'll get together then, son / you know we'll have a good time then," bring the realization that it's all too late. The cycle has come full circle. What makes Cats in the Cradle so powerful is that it is rooted in a very real, universal truth: the way time passes us by, often without us even noticing. Chapin didn't write this song as a warning, it was his personal reflection on the complexities of fatherhood and the toll that busy lives can take on family relationships. His wife, Sandy Chapin, actually wrote the original poem that inspired the song, drawing from her own experience of watching her first husband struggle with his relationship with their son. Harry, having recently become a father himself, saw the deep truth in the poem and turned it into a song. The song struck a chord with audiences because it touched on something everyone could relate to: the regrets that come with not taking the time to cherish the moments we have. It's a reminder that time doesn't stop, and the things we neglect often become the things we regret the most. Tragically, just a few years after the release of Cats in the Cradle, Harry Chapin died in a car accident at the age of 38. His untimely death gave the song an even more emotional weight. Today, Cats in the Cradle continues to be a reminder to cherish the time we have with our loved ones. It's not just a song about a father and son, it's a song about the things we don't prioritize until it's too late, and the painful realization that sometimes, we are the ones who fail to make time for what really matters. As we've journeyed through these 10 iconic songs from the 70s, one thing becomes clear: behind every great song, there is often a powerful, real-life story. Whether it's the haunting memory of the Edmund Fitzgerald disaster, the outcry of injustice in Hurricane, or the poignant lessons about time in Cats in the Cradle, these songs are more than just music, they're snapshots of history, of personal pain, and of societal change. Some of these songs tell stories that are too strange, too tragic, or too powerful to be mere fiction. Others gave voice to private pains or public outrage that many of us never knew existed. But all of them have one thing in common: they are grounded in something real, something lived. And perhaps that's why they resonate with us so deeply. So, the next time you hear one of these songs, don't just think of them as catchy tunes from the past. Listen closely. Hear the history, the pain, the struggle, and the triumphs woven into every note. And remember that sometimes, the most unforgettable music comes from the stories we least expect, stories that could very well be Netflix-worthy. Which of these stories surprised you the most? Did you grow up listening to any of these songs without knowing they were based on real events? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this dive into music history, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell for more stories that go beyond the music. Thanks for watching, and who knows, maybe one day, your own story will become the next big song.